1923 Asylum Journals. Why were the patient's whispered names scrubbed out? I placed this record where no matron dares reach. Behind the iron plate in the corridor that sags, just beneath the pipe that drips rust upon the floor tile shaped like teeth. I write it now not to preserve memory, but because memory has become untrustworthy, like milk left too long in a warm room. What I recall may not be what occurred, but neither is the official account, which claims nothing happened at all. The ledgers have changed. That is not metaphor. They have quite literally altered themselves. Pages that bore ink now bear none. Names once present, patients who sang, wept, choked, begged, are now unabsents. Their entries have thinned, paper faded, edges brittle. Their faces gone from photographs pinned above their cots. Even their linens have lost the smell. A clean death, if it were a death, we were instructed not to ask. When a patient vanished, we were told they had been discharged. Even the girl who bled from her eyes for 3 nights, discharged. Even the boy who carved birds into his skin and named them, discharged. And still the keys jangle on hooks for rooms that are now walls. I have jotted dates where the margins allow, but the ink bleeds outward, like it resists containment. As if it too remembers something it would rather not. I counted once, foolishly perhaps, the rooms on the western hall, 21 by lantern light, 15 by morning. They say not to count. The sisters speak of architectural drift, but how does plaster forget itself? I found a girl curled behind the chapel door. Her name was Elsie, or Ilse. I know not which now. She had no file. Her palms bore the lines of an elder woman. She said she had been born beneath the floorboards, that her mother was a silence, that she had no use for sleep. She hummed the hymns backward, all of them, especially page 142 of the 1834 Baptist hymnal. Lo, what a night was that! We gagged her only after the youngest nurse fainted. The gag did not work. Her humming passed through fabric, lips unmoving. The hallway cracked that night. Not the wood. The air itself split, like paper torn. We heard voices from the vent, and they spoke names none had uttered in years. I recognized 3 of them. All of them were buried without crosses. I spoke to the rector about it before the chapel was sealed. He listened, then bled from one ear, then fainted. They called it seizure. The autopsy said stroke. The linen that caught the blood was turned inside out and sewn back into a curtain. But I remember the pattern. It looked like a mouth with too many rows of teeth. The south corridor is longer now. It used to end in a stair. Now it ends in a door. No handle, no frame. Just a seam where wall meets not wall. Behind it sometimes I hear the name, Lina, repeated in a voice not my own. I have never met a Lina. We do not use that wing anymore. After matron Jill vanished there, no one took her place. Her photo remains in the staff album, but the eyes no longer face forward. Her key still hangs above the garden door. The garden has not grown in 30 years. I opened the laundry chute last winter and found a boot. Small, childlike. Inside it, a name stitched in thread, M. Carter. But our records say we have never had a patient by that name. Still, her boot appears every Sunday, moved to a new hallway. Always warm to the touch. The incinerator was lit only once during my tenure. For a file, not a body. I saw the paper curl, but the name refused to burn. The flames worked around it, dancing but avoiding. The matron whispered. It's always the whispered ones that resist. I do not know what she meant. She died a week later, face blank, hands clenched around a pencil stub. The pencil bore no lead. I have found pages from the 1874 Richmond Medical Review misfiled among our current records. One page describes a case nearly identical to the boy we housed in room 4B. The one who drew spirals in the dust using his tongue. The boy's file no longer exists, nor does room 4B. But I remember cleaning blood from its drain. Sister Adeline keeps walking the halls at night. She mutters names in Latin, then in something older. Her rosary is missing 3 beads. I asked her where they went. She said, I traded them. I asked to whom. She would not say. There are drawings beneath the wallpaper. I peeled a corner and found eyes. Hundreds. Some open, some stitched shut. Beneath that, names. Beneath that, numbers. Beneath that, bone. I stopped peeling. In the physician's study, there is a book always open to the same page. A hydrotherapy manual from 1918. It reads, sedation via submersion. 4 minutes, 41 degrees. Beside it, a note in red ink. If she begins to hum, leave the room. The pen that wrote it is still there. It is dry, but wet to the touch. The autopsy suit contains a sketch labeled, cranial bloom subject 2. It depicts a child. No age listed, no gender, no eyes. I showed it to the new nurse. She said, that's my sister. She has no sister. The basement pipes knock every night at 2:07. Not before, not after. I timed it. On even-numbered nights they knocked 13 times. On odd 12, I asked the janitor if he noticed. He blinked too many times and said, "They like it counted." In the Lexington Gazette, March 3, 1866, a passage describes an asylum fire, not of wood but of names, a blaze of erasure. The journalist wrote, "No flame visible, but names charred from paper, memory, and tongue. Our matron keeps that clipping in her drawer, beside a locket that contains no photograph." This place erases, not just patients, staff, days, whole months. I opened my journal to find July missing, not crossed out, absent. The pages stitched directly from June to August, but I found a fingernail clipping between those pages, with a name carved into it. Not mine, but close. There is no clock that holds true time. The ward bell rings at 13:13 some days. On others it does not ring at all. Patients stop walking when it rings, even if they are asleep. One blink and they are standing, facing the same wall. The west corridor floor swells with breath, not air, breath. It inhales, once every hour. Then it stops. Then it exhales. Matron Tillis once whispered, "They are becoming. You are part of it now." Then she scratched her own name out from her coat badge and vanished from the staff roll. Her room now houses brooms, but the bed remains. The child with no teeth returned last week. We buried her in 21. I know, because I helped sew the shroud. But she now sits near the vent, humming page 142. Backward. I will not gag her this time. I simply close my ears. If I write too much, the pages smear, they bleed. Not red. Something thinner, memory-colored. They are watching me now. Not the staff, not the patients. The ones behind the walls. The whispered ones. The ones whose names were scrubbed from the hymnals, from the blueprints, from birth itself. They want me to forget, but I have hidden their names beneath the chapel floor, scratched them in wax. If this journal is found, do not read them aloud. Do not repeat them. For names are doors, and some doors are best sealed. If you don't believe me, why does your record already bear my handwriting? They told me never to question the orderlies. But one of them, the one with the limp and ink beneath his nails, placed a file in my drawer last week. No name on the cover, no initials, just a page torn from the chapel ledger and a note written on the back. "Stop turning the lights off. They come when it's dark." That night, the hallway bulbs flickered, though the power was stable, though the wires had been replaced only a season ago. I sat on my bed unmoving, and still the shadows moved toward me. There was a girl. She arrived without escort, walked barefoot into the administrative vestibule, and said nothing. Her face was not recorded, no photograph. Only a vague description in a hand I do not recognize. I is unsure, knees bent. She was assigned room 3A. I visited it yesterday. There is no room 3A. I found a blanket folded on the radiator. A single lock of hair was wrapped inside. It smelled of burnt wax and camphor. I did not tell the others. They do not believe in finding things that should not be found. The asylum clock tower, long broken, now chimes at 4:11 daily. No gears, no mechanism. Still the sound comes. Deep, low crack. Patients begin rocking at its sound. The boy in Ward 2A hums a rhythm in sync with it. He says, "They walk on fours when it rings." I asked who. He replied, "The ones between the pages." The ledger for October 1921 is missing. Every copy. But the wall behind the nurse's station shows faint graphite lines, as if someone wrote an entire month there, line by line, then whitewashed it. I scraped gently with my fingernail. Beneath the paint a name I recognized, my own, misspelled. Adeline has stopped eating. She claims food now, tastes like handwriting. Her lips are stained with ink, though no one has seen her with pen or paper. I checked her bedside. Under her pillow, folded into hospital linen, was a menu from 1907. Bloodstains across the item, ox tongue stew. We haven't served that in decades. Each Sunday, a candle appears at the end of the central stairwell. Always white, always lit. No wind extinguishes it. The wax forms a symbol as it drips, concentric circles with one side left open. I have drawn it in my notes. But by morning, the page always tears at that mark. A letter came from the city, typed official seal intact. It read, "Sees further documentation of patient L.M. Carter." No such individual exists in census or birth register, but her boot remains. Her voice too. Sometimes I hear it repeating, no such, no. The east wing feels heavier now. The floorboards sag though they've been reinforced. I weigh myself weekly. I have lost weight, yet the boards protest more. Sister Evelyn swears she saw a fourth floor window open. There is no fourth floor, not anymore. The archivist has not aged in 4 years. His beard remains the same length. His spectacles unbroken, yet his hands tremble when I say the word spiral. He dropped a file once. Inside was a torn newspaper article from the Lexington Gazette, dated 1866. The headline read, "Patient vanishes, bed remains warm." They've started adding names to the staff directory that none of us recognize. Dr. Thorne, Miss Abigail, Gills of the Root. No one admits hiring them. Yet there are voices in unused offices. Soft, repeating lists of numbers that do not correspond to rooms. I opened the drawer to find my own handwriting documenting events I never lived. Nurse fainted during hymnal reading. Stains appeared in the third sink. Subject 9 stared for 13 hours without blinking. I do not remember writing any of it. The ink matches my pen. The lanterns flicker in sequence now, from east to west. Always east to west, like something walking along the halls unseen, casting light as it passes and extinguishing behind. Last night it stopped outside my door. The knob turned once, then again. I held my breath until morning. I found a photograph of the West Ward, dated 1902. The hallway looks unchanged, except for one detail. A figure is visible in the corner, facing the wall, arms at its side. It appears in every photograph thereafter. Same posture, same corner. No matter the year. They say the brain folds memory in layers. But here, memory folds outward. Things once forgotten rise like mold, soft and full of rot. I smelled lilacs yesterday. No one has brought flowers in months. I followed the scent to the pantry. On the shelf sat a pair of children's gloves. Damp, stained. I did not touch them. A new map has been pinned to the wall. It shows corridors that don't exist. Yet this morning, I turned left at the cafeteria and found one. A hallway lined with pale wallpaper, floral, wilted. A door at the end bore no knob, only a name, Judith. There is no Judith here. I sometimes find letters in my pocket, handwritten in looping ink, always unsigned, always beginning with, "We remember you differently." The ink smudges when read aloud. One letter ended mid-sentence. "And when you finally come home." The line trails into a crack that wasn't there before. The fireplace in the common room lights itself now, only when unobserved. I left a recording device once. It captured a low voice whispering, "The warmth is a lie." Then silence. Then 13 minutes of heavy breathing. Then a child's voice. I remember drowning. My skin itches where the names used to be. The patients, the nurses, the ones whose identities I can't place. Sometimes I look in the mirror and do not recognize my own face. The photograph on my identification badge is off. Like it was drawn, not taken. The eyes too wide. The mouth slightly parted. They're rebuilding the annex. They say it's to hold more patients. But no construction team has been seen. The walls grow overnight. Fresh plaster. Nail heads that bleed. One door reads, "For those who answered." Answered what, I do not know. I found a hymnal nailed shut. Every page glued. Yet the spine bent naturally, as if read often. The back cover had writing scratched in charcoal. "Don't let her sing." I saw a nurse humming to herself in the mirror. Her mouth wasn't moving. I'm beginning to suspect this journal is not for me. Not any longer. They buried her twice. Once in the courtyard, beneath the statue with the weather-worn face, and again under the eastern hall, where the bricks never quite set. I remember because I heard her laugh both times. A hollow little sound like water slipping down tile. They say the wind plays tricks when it's hungry. But there's no wind in the sub-levels. I went there once. Alone. Not from courage. I dropped my lantern and followed its light as it rolled downward. The stairs go deeper than the building's blueprints allow. At the bottom was a hall tiled in black glass. My reflection met me there. It did not blink when I did. Its mouth was slightly open. They've started labeling rooms with initials instead of numbers. SR. MLT. I asked what they stood for. The matron said, "What they remember." The letters shift. Sometimes. I've watched them re-etch themselves slowly, as if being corrected from the inside. I found my own initials last week, but the door was not there before. It opened without sound. Inside nothing. No cot, no floor, just absence. Like standing inside a missing thought. Nurse Evelyn vanished mid-sentence during a conversation about linens. She said, "The sheets in 5B keep coming back damp even when we..." And then silence. Her teacup still steamed. Her shoes remained. Her voice echoes in the dumbwaiter shaft now. It doesn't end. I heard them speak my name from the vents last night, not patients. Not staff. Not the wind. I haven't used my own name in over a year. Still, they knew it. Still, they knew how it sounded before I was born. They told us to stop using mirrors. Not because of superstition, but because reflections began arriving out of sequence. Sister Rose saw herself with her eyes stitched shut, though they were open. I saw myself blink before I'd moved. Now the mirrors are covered in black cloth. Still, some of them hum. The records room holds more cabinets than should fit. I've measured the floor. It cannot accommodate all that I see. One drawer bears no handle, only the word, ALS. I pulled it once. Inside it dozens of teeth. No labels, no blood, each one engraved with a single letter. I dreamed of a girl made of paper, her skin thin, torn at the creases. She whispered, "Don't fold me." When I woke, my journal had a new page. Handwriting like mine, but not. It read a "Stop dreaming." That page now refuses to tear. The third-floor bathroom smells like seawater. There's no plumbing to the outside, no salt. Still, the tiles remain damp. Footprints lead from stall to stall. The prints are small, bare, and only appear after midnight. We found a staircase behind the bookshelf in the physician's office. Spiral, narrow. The steps dipped inward, worn by centuries. We followed them. Came to a locked door. Carved on it, "To speak is to serve." We did not enter, but our mouths itched for hours. I once read aloud a note I found on a patient's pillow. 4 words, "She is not gone." That night I woke to find my pillow missing and the words carved into the wall above my head. I have not read aloud since. They built the infirmary on top of older ruins. Not Roman, not colonial, something else. A foundation without documentation. Stones that hum under certain weather. Patients say they hear songs from the cracks, ones they knew before they were born. My hands shake now when I write, not from fear, but anticipation. It feels as though each letter brings something closer, as if what I write is being read elsewhere, mirrored by something with long fingers and deeper breath. A child was admitted last spring. No name, no language, only humming. She drew perfect circles on her skin with kohl. They would not wash off. When asked what they meant, she blinked slowly and whispered, "To keep them out." She died after 12 days. Her body evaporated. Her bed remains warm. There's a section of hallway near Ward D that turns itself. I do not mean metaphorically. I have walked it bent. What was once west leads north. Only during certain hours. The air bends too. Smells like copper. We found a medical chart written entirely in mirror script. It describes procedures no one recalls performing, yet the patients listed show scars to match. The final entry is dated next month. It names a patient who has not yet arrived. I once saw a nurse walking backward down the stairs, eyes closed. She said, "They told me I'll only see it if I descend in reverse." I asked what she meant. She said, "Not what, whom." I have begun seeing names tattooed on my forearms upon waking. By morning they fade. They're always in different handwriting. The ink smells faintly of old wood and salt. I recognize none of them, but they all begin with S. The lantern oil tastes sweeter lately. I did not mean to taste it. It dripped onto my tongue while I lit the wick. My mouth felt full of light for hours. I heard names in my molars. There are pages missing from the 1922 physician's log. Not torn, removed with precision. The thread remains intact, yet the paper is gone. Only impressions remain. Faint letters like bones beneath skin. Someone has drawn a map on the inside of the filing cabinet. It leads nowhere. When traced, it leads the hand back to the same place, but the room changes. I followed it. Once, found myself in a corridor lined with portraits. None bore faces. Only names I don't recognize, but my bones did. The basement contains a well no one claims to have built. Bricked in a circular spiral, it descends past the light. We dropped a stone once. Never heard it land. But 3 days later, the same stone appeared in the chapel font, still wet. The list of missing staff now exceeds the total ever hired. The numbers don't match. Still names keep appearing. Some resemble patients. Others resemble me. I do not recall when I arrived, but I fear I will not recall when I leave, if leaving is even possible. The doors don't close the way they used to. Some slide into their frames with a breath, as though inhaled by the very walls. Others refuse to meet their jambs at all, leaving a sliver of dark visible through the gap. Too dark, not shadow, not absence, a dark that seems to reach back. I have begun to understand why names vanish. It is not that they are erased, but that the asylum itself grows tired of containing them. There comes a time when the name no longer fits the shape left behind, when the record must lie to stay whole. The nurses say this in different ways. Sister Clara says, "Some names get too big." Dr. N said once, "Some words wear out the tongue." He no longer speaks. We kept a journal beside the central register to track inconsistencies. Paper warped daily. Names changed spelling. Elinor became Eleanor, then Eliner, then nothing at all. Whole lines faded, then came back in different ink. Once, my own name appeared in a column marked "Post-mortem notes." The girl from Ward C hums again, but her mouth does not move. Her bed faces the wrong way now. toward the door, not the window. I asked why she'd moved it. She said, "I wanted them to know I see them." When I asked who, she answered, "The ones in the song." We do not permit singing now, but still it happens. A voice under the floorboards, sometimes deep, sometimes the voice of a child. It repeats the same stanza. She's not here, she's never been, but still she knocks and still we sin. I looked up the line. It is not in any hymnal I know. Yet the children mouth it in their sleep. A new record appeared yesterday, dated 1892, typewritten, titled Whisper Protocol. It outlines a series of procedures for managing unlisted patients. There are rules about eye contact, about stairwells, about never referring to the time after dusk. I asked the archivist about it. He said he's never seen such a thing. The paper smelled of lilies. My bedsheets change length during the night, sometimes longer, sometimes too short to cover even my knees, I measured. No one touches them. I sleep with the door locked. Still, each morning, altered. Once I awoke entangled in fabric printed with names, thousands overlapping. When I blinked, it was gone. The garden is dead, it has been for years. But something grows near the far fence. Small white blossoms that smell like burnt sugar. No one remembers planting them. They only bloom when no one is looking. I tried to catch them mid-bloom. I returned with my hands stained red. A portrait in the foyer, long thought to be of the founder, has changed. His expression, once calm, now strains with something unspeakable. His hands are not his own. I mean that literally. They appear to be someone else's, crudely attached with shadow. Sister Ruth says the same face appears in her dreams, offering her keys to doors that do not exist. I keep finding feathers, always two, arranged in a perfect X, tucked into books, beneath pillows, inside desk drawers. We have no birds here. The records for 1915 contain notes in a language no one speaks. Characters like beetle legs, sharp-hooked. I traced one once, my pen broke. I tasted copper in my mouth for hours. I have seen cracks in the ceiling that resemble veins. They pulse. Once they blood. A single drop landed on a nurse's note, smearing the name, Mary. That same night, Mary stopped responding. Her eyes open, her lips dry, her voice lost. Her pulse remains. She hums page 142. The Southern Bell Tower house is a stair that counts wrong. 17 steps up, 22 steps down. I've repeated it 10 times. Same result. The wind there smells like salt and iron, but no sea is near. A corridor was found beneath the archives. Bricked over, no record of its construction. We broke through. Inside, dozens of empty cribs perfectly arranged. Each crib bore a tag. Each tag read, "To be delivered." No dates, no names. The head nurse now keeps her eyes closed during rounds. She says, "The faces are wrong. They've been rearranged." I didn't understand until I saw the boy in 3C blink with vertical lids. His mouth opened on the wrong side. The matron's journal has been missing since 1920, but today it was found in my locker. I do not have a locker. Inside, only one page was legible. They walk beneath the floor, flat, pressed, like scripture never written. I found my shadow facing the wrong direction. When I moved, it stayed. They say the longer you work here, the thinner you become. Not in body, in presence. I used to leave footprints. Now, dust settles too fast behind me. Once I saw my reflection fade while I stood still. The lamps stutter in code now. Morse, perhaps, or imitation. I tried to translate. I got the word, soon. Then hunger. Then the bulbs exploded. They delivered a package today. Addressed to no one, inside a bone. Long yellowed, not human, wrapped in patient linen. A slip of paper read, "From the basement that never ends." I opened my notebook. A new entry had appeared. "Remember to forget." I crossed it out. It reappeared 5 pages later. "When I sleep, I dream of a staircase that breathes. It inhales as I ascend, exhales when I descend. Each step is a memory. I reached the top once. The landing was full of names and none were mine. A patient painted a mural using soot and spit. It showed the asylum inverted, roof buried, foundation in the sky. At the center, a girl without a face. Her name was stitched onto the hem of the sky. I blinked and the wall was bare. The silence here has flavor. It's different in each wing. West tastes like rust, south like wet wool, east like teeth. I no longer open windows. The glass flexes when touched, like it resists being parted from the inside. They don't want to be seen, but they do want to be remembered. The walls have begun to sweat. Not water, not oil, a substance like diluted ink, gray-brown, almost sweet. I touched it once. My fingers went numb. That night, my handwriting changed, tighter, slanted, foreign. A boy arrived this week, though no carriage came. He simply stood outside the gates, eyes shut, hands clenched. His clothes were pre-war, his shoes stitched by hand. When we asked his name, he opened his eyes and said, "They haven't told me yet." His file remains blank. The chapel has grown colder by 12 degrees. We've measured. No draft, no breach, and yet breath fogs, hymns decay. When sung, they seem to repeat back at half tempo, as though something mimics them, delayed. Once, I heard my own voice sing after I'd stopped. I've stopped writing names in full. Just initials now. They vanish slower that way. One patient, JD, used to speak in mirrored sentences. Backwards meaning, forward rhythm. She drew spirals on the floor and insisted they were. How the whispers walk. I believed her more than I should. The wallpaper peels only in the direction of the moon. No matter where you stand, the curl follows the lunar arc. Beneath the peeled layers there are etchings. Small, meticulous. Like maps. Like prayers. A girl sat cross-legged in the courtyard, eyes fixed upward. When asked what she saw, she replied, "The holes between stars." I said, "There are no holes," she said, "not yet." The oldest patient we house is recorded at age 84. I saw her reflection once, young, 16 at most. Her reflection wept. She did not. The kitchen has begun to rot backwards. Fresh food soars while discarded scraps reverse. I found a peach pit hole again. A spoon once bent now straightens with time. The matron says this is due to temporal weight loss. I believe it is memory rewriting itself. A page in the 1834 Baptist hymnal now reads, "We were not meant to sing this." The note was not there last week, nor was the stain shaped like a jaw beneath it. The nursery remains locked. No records exist of its use, and yet toys shift position weekly. A mobile once rang by itself, the tune unfamiliar. The melody made my ears warm. I have not returned since. The candles placed during storm nights melt into symbols. Always the same, a loop broken once, like a fish hook. The wax hardens instantly, sharp-edged. I found one embedded in the mattress of a vacant bed. Bloodless, but wrong. The ledger now contains annotations in rust. At least it appears so. The substance flakes, yet stains deeply. The words, "Not gone, not new, not yours." A man claimed to be a visiting physician. We had no appointment listed. His coat was sewn from patient gowns. His stethoscope was reversed. When I asked his purpose, he said, "I am here for the echo." He left through a wall. One of the patients, MH, drew a door on the floor using charcoal and tears. She sat before it for 2 days, speaking to it. On the third morning, she was gone. No trace. The drawing now shows hinges. It cracks when touched. The library holds a shelf labeled, "Soon." The books there shift titles. One I pulled read, "You will write this sentence." I dropped it. The same sentence then appeared in the margin of my journal, written in unfamiliar hand. I saw myself cross the hall ahead of me. They asked me to sign a form I didn't remember authoring. It bore my name, the older version, the one I haven't used in decades. When I refused, the paper crumbled to dust. The new nurse, Clara, arrived without shoes. She claims she walked from the previous ward. That asylum burned in 1919. She should not exist. And yet, she knows all the hymn pages by heart. I opened a drawer to find a lock of hair wrapped in gauze. It was mine. From years ago. I never gave it. It smelled like someone I don't remember. They've built an annex to house what they call whispered entries. Rooms that contain no one yet need attending. I entered one. It was empty save for a rocking chair that never stops. On the wall, the shape of a face pressed from within. The matron has taken to muttering dates. Not today's. Not linear. May 14th, 1782, then again March 3rd, 2029. She marks them on her arm. We've begun to record them. Some match events, some predict. There's a name that no one says aloud. It appears on no records, yet everyone seems to know it. I've heard it breathed into cloth, etched in dust, whispered to walls. When spoken, the speaker bleeds slightly from the gums. The asylum's foundation is shifting. Doors no longer align. Some open to brick, others to nothing. Once I opened the linen closet and saw a hallway I had never known. At the far end stood a version of me. He turned and walked away. The ink has grown volatile. Some pens write on their own. One drew a circle beside my last entry, perfectly round. It remains damp. I fear it will open. The nurse's log for last Thursday was filled top to bottom. Every line, every inch, with a single name, repeated, over and over. We tried to read it aloud. Our mouths refused. One nurse bit through her tongue. No blood, only black threads spilled from the wound. In the east wing, the wallpaper bubbles beneath the surface. When punctured, it releases the scent of old books and iron. I once saw a patient press his ear against the swell. He smiled, then wept, then screamed, "That's not my name anymore." He tore at his badge until it vanished. I passed a mirror and caught someone else's reflection walking behind me. But there was no one in the hall. The third-floor infirmary has begun to echo even when no sound is made. The space rings with memories, faint prayers, clinking spoons, coughing. When I closed my eyes there, I heard my own voice whispering things I've never said. We don't talk about the spiral staircase behind the morgue. It descends farther than we have mapped. Those who go down return, slightly shifted. Their eyes don't blink in rhythm. Their sentences loop mid-thought. One nurse returned unable to speak vowels. Her tongue had become stiff with script, tiny black markings etched into the skin like surgical notes. A letter was found addressed to me, dated 1835. It was sealed in wax, stamped with the insignia of this asylum, but inverted. Inside, a single sentence. You were always part of the structure. My bed was made before I arrived at it last night, tucked too precisely, as though folded by something that knew me well. On the sheet stitched into the hem was my own handwriting. A date I haven't lived yet. The pipe in the northern stairwell drips steadily. We measured its rhythm. It forms a pattern, dots and dashes. We translated it. It says, I see you, I see you, I see you. A patient spoke backward for 3 days straight, no food, no rest. On the 4th he began to name dates, none current, all future. His eyes rolled back. The final phrase he uttered before falling silent, you will sleep inside the year. There is a drawer in the records room that refuses to open unless music is played. We only discovered this by accident. A janitor humming caused it to slide open slightly. Inside a single feather and a dried leaf. Both labeled Specimen B, no explanation. The drawer now opens for no one. The rain sounds wrong on the windows, too hollow, as if striking bone not glass. A page from an 1871 medical textbook surfaced in a patient's Bible. It details a condition called memory echo disfigurement. The body warping under the pressure of forgotten events. The only known cure, immediate renaming. The ceiling in Ward H has begun to form veins. Not cracks, veins. They pulse, once every hour. At 2011, they stop. An unlabeled cabinet was found in the Eastern nurses' quarters. Inside, rows of gloves, each stitched with initials not on record. One pair bore my childhood nickname, which I have not spoken in 40 years. I did not touch them. I saw the sun rise through a western window. That should not be possible. Patients have begun to share the same dream. They describe a white corridor lined with wooden doors. Each door bears a version of their own name, but slightly off, elongated, shortened, reversed. When asked what's behind the doors, they say, it depends how well you've behaved. I found a rusted key in my shoe. I do not own a shoe with a key compartment. The key is shaped irregularly, notched like a spine. The matron's voice has changed, not in tone but in origin. It now seems to echo slightly even outdoors. Her eyes don't reflect light anymore. We avoid asking her questions. She never blinks unless someone says her name. A box of hymnals arrived last week, though none were ordered. They bear no publisher's mark. Inside each only one page, all page 142, all printed backward, all stained. The laundry returns wet with no source of water. We dry it, it re-wets. A girl once claimed the dampness smells like her mother's voice. I checked her records. Her mother died in 1891. The bricks in the central corridor rearranged themselves overnight. We have photographic proof, though the photos now blur where the pattern differs. Someone is rewriting the foundation. We just don't know who. A former patient, declared deceased, appeared at the gate last night. She wore her old patient gown, eyes wide, mouth closed with thread. No entry was granted. The next morning, a photo of her hung on the hallway wall labeled, returning staff. My breath fogged a mirror that had been removed the previous year. The hallway outside room B17 no longer matches its own length. From the east, it takes 6 paces to reach the door. From the west, 13, we measured repeatedly. The door itself always feels warm to the touch, even in winter, especially in winter. Someone has scratched words beneath the stairwell, not with a knife, but something softer, fingernails perhaps. The message changes weekly. This morning it read, we are not the first. You will not be the last. A Bible was found with all the names of God blotted out. Not erased, devoured. The ink bled outward like a wound. Pages 38 through 41 were fused together. We burned it. The ash smelled like a room we hadn't built yet. Dr. Thorne has returned. He was never hired. He was never listed. But he walks the halls as though they are his own. He does not speak. His coat is buttoned too tightly at the throat. I once caught him staring into the furnace for an hour. The fire did not reflect in his eyes. The photograph in Ward 5's records case shows patients we've never admitted. They sit in orderly rows, hands folded, eyes forward. Each face has a symbol drawn across the mouth. The date reads, July 32nd. The cellar beneath the laundry has a trapdoor. None recall its purpose. It leads into a room filled with hanging linens. Dozens, hundreds, all identical, all stitched with the phrase, "For waking only." The matron keeps a clock that does not tick, yet the hands move, always counterclockwise. At midnight, it points nowhere. The floor beneath the eastern hallway thumps. Soft, measured like a heartbeat in stone. Some claim it is water pipes. Others believe it's her. The name, Myrelle, appeared in the dust on every window yesterday. No one by that name exists here. We checked the archives. A record from 1862 references her as a nurse assigned to the children's ward. That wing burned down in 1884. The ash still smells like honey and soot. A series of tiny doors were discovered behind the bookshelves, too small for use. Each has a brass plate labeled with a year. Some are from the future. One door bore the year 2026. It was cold to the touch. A patient drew an image of the moon bleeding from one side. When asked what it meant, she replied, "That's when the voices swim closer." Her hands had been tied behind her back at the time of drawing. I found a note in my coat pocket today. It read, "They've almost found your real name." I never put it there. The northernmost hall echoes even when silent. Footsteps that do not match ours. Breathing that pauses too long. Once I coughed, and something laughed faintly back. Records of the first patient ever admitted have vanished. No name. No gender. Only a mark remains in the oldest ledger. A curved line with 3 sharp prongs. It appears now in places we've never touched. Inside drawers. Behind picture frames. Scratched onto teeth. The shadows in the washroom no longer align with the fixtures. They stretch wrong. Slant wrong. One leaned toward me when I passed, as though listening. A spoon was found on the roof, bent inward, engraved with, "Return to mouth." No ladders reach that part of the roof. One of the basement lights buzzes in a rhythm that matches an old funeral march. The same one we found on a torn scorebook from 1874. The name written in the margin, Degre, Gills. No such doctor exists. His name appears only in whispered prayers now. I once touched a wall that felt like skin. It shivered. There's a phrase scratched into the bell tower wood. "We're buried wrong." I did not write it, but it's in my handwriting. One of the patients began to count backward. She started at 144, 139. Her voice grew thinner with each number. She stopped at 139 Zalor 1 and collapsed. When she woke, she whispered, "That was the first name." She's been silent since. The basement holds jars labeled with verbs. Forget. Devar. Return. Inside each something alive barely. One jar is warm. They told us to stop burning patient belongings. The ashes began to move on their own. Each tooth extracted from Ward C patients bears a letter etched in the root. The first formed a sentence. The rest, instructions. My calendar skipped a day. Not crossed out. Gone. The paper fused between Tuesday and Thursday. No one remembers Wednesday. The matron said, "That was the price." We opened a lock case labeled, "Do not unseal." Inside a book with no spine. No words. Just pressed hair between the pages. Human, red, still warm. The tooth drawer opened again. No one was near it. Inside, 3 new teeth, fresh, still bloody, each labeled in cursive ink though no hand admits to writing it. Second thought. Half known. Belonging. The northern trees long dead have started to bloom, but not leaves. Tiny slivers of paper, folded like prayer notes. I plucked one. It unfolded itself and read, "She forgives the floorboards." I saw something move across the ceiling in the reflection of my teacup. I looked up, nothing. But when I blinked, there were footprints above the door. Small. Bare. A nurse reported hearing a lullaby in the cistern. Faint, almost maternal. She leaned in. Her hair turned white before we pulled her back. She will not speak, but hums page 142 now. Slower each time. In the bathhouse, steam writes messages. Always brief. Always warnings. Last week, hey woke. This morning, do not follow the noise. The floorboards in the west wing are too soft. Not rotting, breathing. I stepped there once and felt a pulse beneath my shoe. The rhythm matched my own heartbeat, until it didn't. A crumpled envelope appeared in my satchel. No stamp, no seal. Inside, a sketch of a woman with no face, only names layered where her features should be. Underneath, in pencil, she wore them to speak. The matron has ceased using her own name. She signs the ledgers with a single symbol. A spiral wrapped in teeth. It cannot be erased. I've tried. It scars the paper. 3 patients have forgotten their reflections. Not that they don't see one. They no longer recognize it. One screamed, "She's using my skin wrong." The ledger has grown thicker. We haven't added pages. We found a doll in the crawlspace beneath the west stairwell. No limbs, its eyes sewn shut with wire. A note in its chest cavity read, "They didn't need to see. They remembered too loud." The chapel's bell tolls at irregular hours now. Each time it does, someone finds a nail in their bed. Bent once, rusted always. The southern hall displays peeling paint in the shape of script, none legible. But one phrase continues to recur: "I came late. She stayed longer." I touched the doorknob of the cold room and heard a voice say my name, but reversed. The doorknob was warm. The name Esther has begun appearing in dream logs across patients and staff. No such person is on record, but several patients draw her: long coat, crooked mouth, eyes too far apart. They always say, "She's learning to be real." My own voice is different in recordings, slower, deliberate. In one, I heard myself whisper after the tape had stopped, "Keep writing or she stops sleeping." The carpet by the matron's quarters feels deeper than the others. One nurse dropped her pen into it. We never found it. But days later, ink pooled from a crack in the wall of Ward 3. A photo of the original asylum staff now includes someone standing in the back row. A woman in a black smock holding a string of teeth. We checked the original. She's not there. There is a sound behind the furnace that mimics speech but never forms words. It grows clearer when the fire dims. The matron forbade low flames. Every drawer in the eastern hallway opens slightly at night. Not wide, not random, just enough to whisper. The nurses' shoes have begun to scuff symbols into the floor. Not consciously, they walk. The marks appear. Most often, it's the spiral again. One evening I woke before dawn to find my mattress floating, only slightly, an inch or two. When I blinked, it settled again. There's a new hallway where the old library used to be. It slopes downward. No lights. When I walked 5 steps in, I heard my father's voice reciting scripture. He died before I was born. The new doctor's coat smells like earth and varnish. He speaks gently, but the floor warps where he walks. Once I saw a crack follow his steps like a shadow with teeth. They unearthed a box beneath the garden bed. Inside, hundreds of name tags. All printed, all burned at the edges. My name was among them, spelled wrong, the way my mother used to write it. Someone is keeping a second version of this journal. I found pages I didn't write, but they match my style, my rhythm. The pages describe things that haven't happened yet. One says, "The room will flood at dusk. Save the name in your mouth." I haven't spoken since. The eastern dining hall has grown too quiet. Not peaceful. Wrong. The chairs no longer creak. The forks do not ring. Even footsteps fail to echo. The new staff member asked if the walls were padded. They are not. Someone has started placing stones in the shape of circles under the patients' beds. Always 7. Always smooth. When removed, they return the next night, slightly darker. The page in my journal turned on its own as I wrote. I do not remember what I wrote before it turned. But the ink on that page was wet, as though just written in someone else's hand. My signature was at the bottom. I stood in the courtyard during the 5th-hour watch. I watched frost form on the windows. One pane did not frost. Behind it I saw a patient we buried in spring, sitting upright, hands folded, mouthing a name. The crucifix in the hallway chapel melted slightly last week. Wood should not melt, yet the face of the figure slid downward like wax. We placed it in storage. The storage now smells like teeth. A letter arrived for me addressed in calligraphy too old to mimic. The return address simply read, Basement 2. There is no basement 2. Inside, a photograph of my face, aged by decades. Beneath it, a line, I waited, but you wrote too slow. The candles in the south stairwell flicker in harmony with no wind. They seem to respond to certain names. I whispered Eleanor. The flame tilted toward me. There's a corridor in the western block where sound inverts. Your steps fall behind you. Your breath precedes your chest. I walked at once. My cough echoed before I exhaled. The bones we found under the garden last autumn belonged to a species not yet catalogued. The femur bore carvings, small, sharp, written in triplets. They read, she forgives, she forgets, she feeds. We found a clock whose hands point only inward. I dreamt of a ledger with every patient's name scribbled in ash. When I touched the list, my finger darkened. I woke with soot under my nails. The bed sheets in 2C are now impossible to fold. They writhe, not visibly, but they never crease the same way twice. The corners never meet. A young boy muttered nonsense for 3 days. On the 4th, he whispered in perfect German, "The mouths are forming under the floor." He's never been taught the language. A crack in the plaster grew into a mouth last night. I watched it yawn. The plaster teeth were soft. Nurse Langdon keeps appearing in 2 places at once. Not fully. A hand here, a shadow there. He insists he hasn't noticed. but I saw his reflection blink out of sequence. A single seed was placed on every breakfast tray. No one knows who did it. When planted, each one sprouts a name tag instead of a leaf. My name bloomed from the third. A hallway that never existed now appears at dusk. It smells like antiseptic and pine. Every door is numbered 0. One door opens. Behind it, only whispering and feathers. The matron no longer sleeps. Instead, she kneels in the archive and turns 1 page per hour. When asked what she's reading, she replies, "Your echo." The basement thermometer reads 13 degrees even when the room is aflame. I saw a mirror image of myself, standing behind glass. It mouthed a name I have never known but felt was mine. I have avoided that hallway since. The candles now burn without wicks. They do not consume, but the light they give off makes the corners ripple. The chapel pews rearranged themselves last week. We didn't see it happen. But in the morning they faced the wrong way, toward the organ, not the altar. Beneath one an old hymnal, open to a page I've never seen. The lyrics read, "What once was named must sleep again." The back staircase bends now. Not visibly, but when you walk it, your weight lists to the left, as though gravity forgets itself. The new physician brought no bag, no coat. Only a small ledger filled with scribbled notes. I caught a glimpse. Every page bore the same entry, my name, followed by the word retained. I asked what it meant. He said, "Some must not be returned." 2 patients woke with the same tattoo across their chest, an open circle with 3 breaks. They claimed it burned when names were said aloud nearby. Someone is etching diagrams into the wood of the 3rd floor banister. Not drawings, blueprints. None matched the layout of the asylum. One bears a label, "She lives in the walls now." The mouth of the furnace opens wider than it should. I measured. It stretches 2 inches farther every week. I dropped a match once, the flame inverted, drawing inward. A bell tolled at midnight. We have no bell tower that chimes. Yet in the journal room, I found ash forming the shape of an hourglass. A nurse's tongue turned black after reading aloud from a forgotten chart. She survived. But now she whispers only once per day. Her words always rhyme. They've begun to repeat. The map in the main office shows a hallway that was sealed in 1902. Yet this morning, the doors were open. The hallway breathed cold. There's a jar in the root cellar labeled, "To be heard." It contains a single human ear, still fresh. It presses against the glass when spoken near. The names carved into the window sills are not written by hand. They're grown, organic, like rings in wood. Each morning, new names appear. Mine appeared yesterday. But reversed, I wrote a list of supplies. When I blinked, the paper now read, sealing thread, milk, tooth powder, maps of names. 1 name removed. The kitchen clock chimed 13 times at noon. A file cabinet opened itself to reveal only 1 sheet, a list of whispered names. All struck out. 1 name was circled, not in ink, in blood, dry and flaking. A whisper followed me down the ward last night, not a voice, just breath. I stopped. It did not. A patient laughed in a voice not their own, deeper, older. He said, "I borrowed it. She's sleeping now." The shadow cast by the west stair does not follow the sun. 3 books returned to the library bore no titles, only the sound of weeping when opened. There's a window in Ward D that shows a different sky. Cloudless, always dim. Once, it showed stars I could not name, too many, too bright. One of the patients whispered, "She's watching through those." A broom swept the floor by itself in the southeast corridor. Not drifting, deliberate strokes. When we approached, it stopped mid-motion, leaning against nothing. We opened the matron's drawer. Inside, no records, no pens, just feathers. Small, thin, black, each labeled with a number. The largest bore the date July 6, 1926. That's a year from now. I caught my own reflection mouthing something while I stood still. I tried to read my lips. The phrase repeated. Name it and it feeds. The floor beneath the old infirmary has softened. It gives slightly beneath weight like flesh. 1 nurse stepped too hard. Her shoe was swallowed. A ring of salt was found beneath every pillow in Ward E. We do not use salt here. The cook says the cellar's supply is untouched. An old phonograph played itself in the records room. The voice on the cylinder said, "This is not the only place she lived." Then the machine melted. I traced the walls in the west corridor with chalk. The next morning, a map appeared, hundreds of rooms, none known to us. At the center, a single mark, ink deep, a name we dare not say. The matron's face has changed, not entirely, but her right eye reflects nothing. No candlelight, no movement, only depth. A rusted bed frame sings at night, a low metallic hum. The frequency matches a human heart slowed by half. The children in Ward F draw only spirals now. When we remove the chalk, the shapes reappear in ash. The southern stairwell is now longer going up than going down. I counted up 33 steps. Down 28. No matter how slowly you walk. They found a single glove behind the wall tiles. Inside a fingernail with writing on it. It read, "Do not knock." She listens with her mouth. A nurse placed a basin of water beneath the cracked pipe. The water formed letters on its surface. They said, "We are so sorry you were chosen." A page in the surgical logbook grew damp without cause. The ink blotted into a shape resembling a hand. 6 fingers, all pointed at a single entry: patient Thalozin. "We have no such patient." There's a soft sound now, always beneath your breath. If you hold still, it mimics your last spoken word, like someone memorizing you. A candle flickered near the portrait of the asylum's founder. His eyes now glance left. They never did before. We checked the original. His gaze was fixed. But today, he watches the door. The vines outside have grown over the windows, not with leaves but with pages. Torn paper fluttering in the breeze, each inscribed in the same hand. It was never a hospital. It was a question. A patient in 3D was found smiling in his sleep. His lips bore dried ink. On his pillow a sentence written in tiny script: "He was borrowed, not born." I heard knocking beneath the chapel floor. When I placed my hand on the stone, it pulsed. I whispered a name aloud. The knocking stopped. The reflection in the hallway mirror now lags. Only half a second, but enough to see yourself finish blinking after you already have. There is a chair in the laundry that no longer casts a shadow. The new map of the asylum bears no exits, only loops. One hallway folds into itself on paper, forming a knot. Someone labeled it, "Her Path." The ledger now grows warm when held. Certain names cause the binding to twitch. One name made the ink run, mine. The records of the first matron have reappeared. But every page is blank, except for a list of numbers 3, 11, 17, 22 on her, and one phrase at the bottom: "Those who hear it live it." A bell rang where no bell should exist. We followed the sound into the morgue. The slabs were empty. On the wall, 24 tally marks in rust. There's a hollow behind the pantry. The air inside smells of soap and old paper. A voice once said my mother's name from within. She's never visited. The matron hums now, just before dawn. Always the same tune. When we asked its name, she replied, "Not everything you sing survives." A photograph taken last month has changed. Where there were faces, now there are none. Just silhouettes, hollowed. The photo pulses faintly if held. A spoon laid out in the infirmary twisted into a circle overnight. On the wall behind it, a new line of scripture appeared. "He returns through spirals, not doors." An old patient whispered, "They've begun to write me backward." His name tag flipped the next day. Mirror text readable only in water. The hallway to Ward F hums when walked alone. It quiets if 2 enter. We tested it. When 1 returned alone, the humming became a scream. A tooth was found in my coat pocket, wrapped in gauze labeled, "Yours," before forgetting. The patient from 4B has no record of arrival, yet she knows every name, even those erased. When asked who she is, she answers. The space between what they knew and what they could bear. The medicine bottles now come labeled in dead languages. Latin, Old Church Slavonic, one we cannot decipher. The nurse who opened one bled from her ears. She does not sleep now, only counts. The spiral has begun to appear in dreams, across staff, across patients, always carved, always moving. One man said it led him to her mouth. The ash in the furnace spelled, "Return." We did not touch it. The official census of 1923 lists 37 patients, but our ledgers show 81. We've counted, recounted, erased the overlap. But when the wind changes, more names appear, in suit, in thread, in breath. A man arrived yesterday claiming to be me. He bore my name, my face. He knew what I'd written, but his eyes were milky, like paper left too long in rain. He said, "You never left, you were archived." I asked who released him. He answered, "You did, when you forgot the rules." The original floor plan was found behind the foundation bricks, dated 1871. It shows no infirmary, no east wing, no records room. And yet here we stand, between them. The map labels this building not as asylum, but registry. The phrase has returned. It was not a hospital. It was a question. All the journals, mine included, are identical. I opened one written in 1896. Word for word. It matched what I wrote 2 nights ago. But the name signed at the end was not mine. Not even close. And yet I recognized the handwriting. It was my own. The basement door is bricked up, has been for years. But sometimes under thunder, we hear voices echoing upward through the floorboards. One said last week, "Stop cataloging what we've already buried." The boy in Ward A is now unphotographable. His face blurs in every image. We tried tintype, daguerreotype, even oil sketches. His mouth always comes out as a line of numbers 7.9 dine, 4.5 14. We translated the cipher WRIDE and not a word. But etched in the floor under his cot in black wax, the spirals stopped appearing this morning. Now it's only keys. Keys scratched into windows, keys inked into soap, keys burned into toast. None match any door here. But I know if we keep turning them. I awoke to find my own journal entries overwritten in another hand. Sharper, more angled. On every page, a single word repeated in the margins. Artocad. Followed by. The name was not hers, it was lent. Matron no longer moves. Her body remains, but something else writes for her. I found a note beneath her cot. When she stopped sleeping, she became the hallway. We have no matron anymore. Only echoes that answer. The chapel organ played without touch. The song reversed hymns. Oh, come not near, O wounded flame. When we traced the music source, we found no pipes, only pages, thousands, fluttering in the rafters. Pages from our own